You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of singers and sound creators who are redefining what it means to make music with the voice. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Evan, and this week we're joined by Sam Creighton, who's a singer and songwriter currently based in LA, who's an alum of the Northeastern University Nor'easters, and is a current member of pro group Musae.
During this episode, we talked about Sam's upbringing, her time in the Nor'easters, making the switch and joining Musae and moving to LA, and some of the current music that she's working on today. Stay tuned.
Go!
Exactly. Yeah. That's really nice.
Word. Well, we are here with Sam Creighton. Sam, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So we just wanted to start kind of from the beginning. Did you grow up in a musical household? Were your parents playing music? Were your parents musicians? We're going to start there. And also where you're from.
So I was born in South Shore, Massachusetts, like Weymouth area, and then I went to school for 5 years in Boston. So I guess when people ask me what home is, I definitely say Boston because it feels the most right in my soul.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time one of the first memories I have in general is sitting on my grandfather's lap as he played the piano, and him trying to teach me lyrics to a song called "What'll I Do." His favorite version is the Elvis version. But that aside, my immediate family isn't musical. My parents don't play any instruments. My siblings are tone deaf. But everyone in my family is very creative. Mm-hmm. So I think that the creativity kind of just manifested itself in me in music, whereas my mom is like a multimedia artist. She works with paints and quilting and different kind of mixed media, I guess is what you call it. And my brother has a wood shop that he built.
Oh, cool. He
built in my backyard, and he just creates a bunch of different, I guess, tables. He's made chairs. He's built houses before, but his claim to fame, I guess, are his cutting boards. He makes these beautiful cutting boards. He braids the wood together and then shaves it down. I can't even explain it, but it's really stunning. Okay. So musical background, musical family, not so much, but creative family, definitely.
So you mentioned that you used to sing with your grandfather, which is really cute. But what sort of influences, if there weren't necessarily musical influences in your household, what sort of exterior musical influences kind of made you think, oh, like I like singing and this is someone that I'm looking to?
Well, it's kind of funny because I never really consciously thought I like singing. I just always did it.
Yeah.
Just always did it. And maybe my grandfather was the catalyst for that and me realizing that I liked to sing notes from my voice and throat, but I just always did it. I never had any questions or realizations that I wanted to continue it. I just would ask my mom, can I get in voice lessons? Can I do the community theater production? And then obviously when we got to choose between playing an instrument and doing chorus in elementary school, middle school, I always decided I wanted to do chorus. I tried to play the clarinet, but that didn't work out so well. But yeah, I've just been on this musical journey and path for as long as I can remember. In addition to my grandfather, my great aunt, my mom's aunt, played the guitar, and she would always sing Puff the Magic Dragon. I don't know if you guys know that song.
Yes.
But those two, that Puff the Magic Dragon and What'll I Do are like the two songs from my childhood. And then the first musical theater production I was in was I was a townsperson in Beauty and the Beast. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I just went to middle school and was in musical theater productions in middle school and then high school and then doing all like the district and all-state choirs and all that, which led me to college. And obviously I wanted to continue doing music in some facet. So I found a cappella, and that's how that happened.
Yeah.
So you'd mentioned like theater and choir and everything. What were like the formative people that you were listening to and were like trying to emulate on some level?
In my formative years, I know what it is. My mom had these 2 VHS tapes that I would beg for her to play over and over again. One of them was Raffi. Do you guys know Raffi?
Yeah.
He played a kazoo and he sang about like, oh my God, he had this one-man show that was, it was a VHS tape, and it was for children. It was very targeted to like, I don't know, 5 to 10-year-olds maybe even younger than that. But I would beg my mom, I would cry when that VHS ended. I would beg her to restart it. And the other one was We Sing. Did you guys ever see like the We Sing videos?
We Sing.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, I just wanted to be. There's one, Sillyville. Do you know Sillyville? She had the white dress, and her journey was
like colored in.
so depressing at first, and she had to find a way to make everyone come back together. And then when all the different types of music came back together, her dress became rainbow again.
Yes.
Oh, I just got chills thinking about that. But those were definitely. Those influenced or maybe not influenced, but reinforced my love for music. But in terms of, like, I guess people that I listened to, the first artist I remember listening to was when I was, like, 11, 12, 13, was JoJo. Like, certainly JoJo. That I forget what her, the first album she had was, but my mom bought it for me. And I brought it around with me literally everywhere. I had a Walkman, and I would listen to that, Hilary Duff, and Jessica Simpson. Like, so random, but JoJo definitely was the one for me.
You mentioned that once you got to college, you obviously wanted to keep music in your life, and you wanted to keep actively singing, so you joined, obviously, Nor'easters. So what was kind of the starting phase of that for you? Like, what was your mindset when you were going into the group?
In high school, I was very heavily involved with musical theater and music and choir and all that. And I had a really close relationship with my choir teacher. And she, like, really, really was forcing me to go into music in college. And I, for some reason, just wanted to be a rebel. And my parents also my dad wanted me to be a doctor. And so I decided against music in college, which, I don't know. It's neither here nor there now, but when I got to college and started taking my first week of classes, and they were all science-based and so analytical and methodical, I was like, oh my God, I need something creative. And then Anthony knows about this, but we have convocation. And at the convocation ceremony, the Nor'easters performed, and they announced, we're going to have this a cappella group come sing for you guys. I had no idea what an a cappella group even was. And they sang this song, and I immediately became obsessed. And I looked at my friend, my roommate at the time, and I said, I'm going to be in that group. I don't know how or when or why or what it even is, but I'm going to be in that group. And then after convocation, you go outside, and they have, like, snacks and a barbecue, and all of the Nor'easters were standing there holding out pieces of paper saying, audition for a group. And it was like a sign from God. I was like, oh my gosh. And I took the paper. I signed up for the audition. I went in, and I was so nervous. But I like I said, I had it in my mind. I'm going to be in this group. I don't care what tries to get in my way, but, like, there's something about that group that's like pulling me to them. And I auditioned, was super nervous. I had also auditioned for the, what was it called? It was the musical theater production. It was called Reefer Madness. And it was about marijuana. And at that point in my life, I was like, oh my God, that's a drug. That's a horrible drug. I don't want anything to do with that. But I wanted to be part of the musical theater club in case I didn't get into Nor'easters. And so I remember having to leave the Nor'easter audition early to go audition for the Reefer Madness. And then I ended up getting into Nor'easters, even though I left early. I don't know how the hell that happened. I felt so rude. I went into my first rehearsal for Nor'easters, and I was obviously so intimidated because I was looking up to all of these people who were much older than me, had experience in college, had experience in music, had experience in a cappella. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I remember in the callback I had to sing Jadendo Jigadigadoom Die was the syllable I had to sing. That was a Shams Ahmed arrangement. It was for a song called Show Me What I'm Looking For. And obviously, like, he's come a long way since the Jadoom Day, Jigga Day. But, you know, going into that first rehearsal, it's so intimidating. But I just knew that I was going to push myself and become, you know, a very productive and active member of the group. And
well, speaking of Shams,
yeah, go ahead.
We were talking to him before this episode about things that we might be able to mention to you. And,
God.
He said that we should ask you about Teenage Dream, your first solo with the group.
Yeah, thanks, Shams. Shout out. As I was talking about being intimidated, my stage presence was like slim to none at that point. I was so used to doing musical theater stuff, which is very obviously theatrical and verbose, I guess. And I had never really had experience singing pop music. So I auditioned for the Teenage Dream solo, and yeah, that was the first solo I had in the group. But looking back on the videos of the song now, and even listening to the recording of it, I just had this like musical theater vibrato and timbre. And watching the video back we had a wildcard video for ICCA that we filmed in Baracus Hall, and just like one of the main halls in Northeastern's campus. And I just feel I look so awkward. I look like I don't know who I am as a person. I'm so uncomfortable in my own skin, and I just have this like musical theater vibrato. I'm like, you make me, like, it's so bad. But I guess you live and you learn, and you grow and improve. So.
Right.
Definitely experienced to
yeah. So like Shams had also mentioned, not to put you on blast in any way, but I think it's interesting to track your progress in the group from that, you know, where you ended up by your senior year. But he said she would go to parties clutching her sheet music, and I would literally rip it out of her hands to help her have a good time. So like, what started that process of kind of, you know, gaining some more stage presence and confidence and everything like that?
Oh my gosh. I think just time in the group. Like, he's not joking. There are many pictures on Facebook of me literally at parties with my sheet music like this, and I have a photo of Shams with his face is like contorted. He's like pissed off. He's like get the sheet music out of your hand. Take a shot. And I'm like, no, I need to memorize it. Like, I don't want to get kicked out, because we would have part checks in Nor'easters. So Shams would go around the circle, and he would put his ear an inch from our mouth, make sure we were singing all the right parts at the right volume with the right rhythm. And I was like, I am not about to be put on blast in this group. I'm going to know all my parts. I'm going to learn everything down to the T. Like, I was so nervous. But I guess what took me out of my shell was just honestly becoming familiar with the group and becoming friends with them. And there was no specific point of me going from no confidence to having confidence. It was definitely a journey, and still is, honestly. But yeah, I think just having Shams as my mentor and honestly like vocal coach really helped as well. And he's such a hard ass. Like, there was no way for us to not improve in that group, because if we didn't improve, we would be kicked out of the group. And Shams was just like an amazing catalyst with tough love. Definitely with tough love, but it was so worth it, because we achieved every goal we had and then some in that group.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned like there wasn't necessarily a certain point where you were like all of a sudden confident, or like things kind of switched. But is there a particular solo or a particular moment that's like super vivid in your mind where you felt really comfortable as yourself doing a solo or something?
Yeah, I think that the first time I felt really confident singing a solo was my third year being in the group, and I got the solo for Wrong Side of a Love Song.
Where were you when I needed a friend? I thought I could be strong. Never knew I would be so wrong.
By Melanie Fiona. And it was kind of like an underrated, maybe not underrated, just like under the radar kind of song that we performed in the group, but it served as like the ballad for our ICCA set that year. And I just remember feeling so emotionally attached to that song because I had so many life experiences that I could attach to that song. One being a really difficult breakup, and then another being my relationship with my father. And the song is basically about how did I end up on the wrong side of a love song? Like, why are all these horrible things happening to me? Why did you leave me? You said you'd be there for me. And so those are obviously very visceral. Like, I have a very visceral reaction when I hear those lyrics because I can relate so heavily to it. So every time I perform that song, I would just bare my soul. And that's the crazy part, is because I didn't need to do any crazy dancing or, like, showing off moves or, for me, I felt the most confident because I believed what I was singing.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then from there, obviously, it came more naturally, and I understood what it felt like to connect to a song and to feel the music that I was performing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So along the way, you had mentioned that you achieved like pretty much every goal that you set up for yourself with SoJam and ICCA and albums and everything, and that culminated with your last year in the group being on Sing It On, which is well documented because it was filmed and in the world, and also you recently did a podcast episode with James Fletcher, who is also on the show, which we definitely recommend going and checking that one out too if you want to hear more about that. But in talking with James, you kind of talked about how being part of the show like opened up these networks and these avenues for you. Like, how did that kind of start maybe shifting what your post-college plans were?
Great question. As we were filming the show, it did kind of feel like a culmination of being in that group. Like a almost catharsis, I guess, because I had put, going back to me clutching my sheet music, like I was paying absurd amounts of money to go to college, and instead of having my studies in my arms, I had my sheet music in my arms. Like, that is saying something, so I put my life into this group, and we all did, honestly we all did. But once I started filming the show, and I just, school just became such a second thought in my mind. I didn't even care about it anymore because I was finally doing something that I loved and getting recognition for it, and I wanted to put all my energy and effort into that. And I guess the validation of all of that happening, and because I kind of have this weird imposter syndrome or like paranoia complex where I just don't think anything that I do is worthy of anything. So having this Sing It On crew come in and say, we want you guys to do well and we want you guys to prosper and succeed. And then the way we were treated, they would pick us up from our apartments and bring us to the hotel to film our interviews. And they would make sure that we were well fed, and they would take into account our emotions and our feelings. And they flew us to LA to film extra scenes that needed to be filmed, and it just felt like something so much greater than just me. It felt like it was just really nice to have a team of people, I guess. And that was the first time I felt where my music or my musical endeavors were becoming more of a professional thing. And I loved the idea of that. I loved the idea that I could turn something that I'm so passionate about and was doing just for fun into something lucrative that I could turn into a way of life, a career. And I still, at that point, had no idea how I was going to do it. I still have no idea how I'm going to do it. But I guess just I made the decision in my mind to make the most of that experience. So obviously moving to LA really helped with that. But I stayed in touch with the producers. I talked to the head producer of Pop Network. I reached out to a bunch of people who found me from the TV show, and they're still my best friends in LA and collaborators to this day, so I just decided to take advantage of everything that came my way and didn't take any of it for granted and didn't shy away from any of it, which is so unlike me. But I figured if I'm gonna do the damn thing, I better do the damn thing. So yeah, I guess the shift was, again, nothing is just like a switch, but is a journey and a process. And from the moment the Sing It On crew came into our first rehearsal up until this very day, it's been a journey of me, seeking out opportunities and making the most of them.
So when exactly did you decide that LA was the move?
There was a switch for that, actually, where everything else is kind of like a journey. This one was a definite yes or no. I auditioned for Acapella Academy Retreat, which was not the one for the kids or high schoolers, but they had 1 year of a college level Acapella Academy. Yeah. I auditioned for it, was humbly accepted, went to LA, was here for 3 weeks. The retreat was only like 7 to 10 days, but I didn't want to leave. And when I came out, I only booked a one-way flight because I wasn't sure when I was going to leave. So obviously I had a job back in Boston. I was working in a science lab, dissecting mice and removing their brains and imaging them for, depression model mice and neurodegenerative. I can't even say the word. I worked on the goddamn thing for 5 years. Neurodegenerative disorders. That's proof that I'm not in the right field. Okay, good. But so I ultimately had to come home, but it took me 3 weeks to finally be like, okay, I gotta do it. Booked the flight home, was home for another 3 weeks, was crying on the phone to my stepdad every single day saying, I don't want to be here, I hate this job, I want to be in LA, I know it's where I need to be. Just because of the people, the weather, especially the weather. I'm telling you, if you guys have seasonal affective disorder, get to LA now.
We were literally just talking about that yesterday.
Get here now.
Need to do that.
But so luckily my stepdad is best friends with somebody who works in film out in LA. And the second I landed back in Boston, I had a voicemail from this guy. And he said, hey, I'm working on a new movie. It starts filming next week. I want you to be my location coordinator. Let me know if you can do it. And I quit my job and moved to LA and started working on the movie. And that was 3 years ago now. It just flew by, but that's probably the most important decision I've ever made in my life.
Yeah.
Are you at liberty to say what movie, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, it's an HBO film. It came out 2.5 years ago with Bryan Cranston. It was called All the Way.
Oh, is that the LBJ?
Yeah.
Movie?
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So I think in the timeline somewhere around here, you started singing with Musae, and we just talked to Angela last week. Yeah, who we love. Can you just talk about your experience, being part of that, which was a vaguely new thing?
Yeah, it's amazing. I was actually on location for the LBJ movie when I get a phone call from Jo Vincent, who's the bass in the group. Right. And she said, Sam, we're looking for a sub for this upcoming gig. And I think it was Pennsylvania. It was called the Central Bucks Acapella Festival. And she said that Hannah had either left the group or was taking some time off from the group, which obviously made me sad because she is like an icon, an acapella legend. Yeah. But I was so excited to even entertain the thought of singing with that group because I had looked up to them for so long. I love all the girls in the group.
Yeah.
Like, love all of them. So I obviously said yes. And then I had to fly to Atlanta, Georgia, to Courtney's house for a retreat to learn all of the music. And then we did the gig. And after the gig was over, they asked me to be a permanent member of the group, which I immediately said yes to. Because writing music and doing your own thing in LA and kind of struggling and being on this unknown journey is great and nice and all, but because I had been in the Nor'easters for so long, I was so missing that collaboration and camaraderie within a group. And also, not to mention, just singing harmonies with people is so underrated when you're not doing it every day. Oh my God, it's like it's the best feeling ever. So I've been in the group now for about 2.5, 3 years, which is kind of wild. But it's definitely been an incredible experience, and I'm so grateful for all of the girls. The group has obviously evolved since then. Courtney had a baby, so she left too. Now Jessie's a permanent member of the group, which is so amazing because she too was in the Nor'easters. So she's a little taste of home, I guess you could say. Obviously, I've been working with Angela for 8 years now because she recorded. She was the producer who recorded the first album I was ever a part of with Nor'easters, and so I've known her for a while. Joe, I've been a fan of because of the sing-off and just her whole journey. And then Mel, I'd met a few times at Sled Dog Studios in Rochester, and I just thought she was the coolest person ever. Yeah. She's like a female beatboxer. There was none of that when I was in college. She's just a total badass and the hardest worker I've ever met. And it's so much fun, and we sing the coolest songs. We're working on original music now, which is really cool. I don't know if maybe that's a surprise. I don't know. Forget it. We're working on original music. We're saying it. Don't take it out. But yeah, it's been amazing. We've traveled to Europe. I know those girls went to Hong Kong. I wasn't in the group yet, but we did a 3-week tour in the UK and Europe. We went to Paris, we went to Amsterdam, we went to London, we went to Edinburgh. It was amazing. It was just amazing. And then we have random one-off gigs all over the US. We went to Alaska. I was in Alaska for 22 hours for a gig a few weeks ago. I flew right from Alaska to Kentucky because an old nor'easter was getting married. So, acapella still rules my life. It's funny.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are like not constantly, but there's always something happening during the year that you're like looking forward to, which I'd imagine like is a nice not backup, but just a nice like
a sure thing
that has momentum, especially for someone like you who's out in LA, and like a lot of things I'd imagine are up in the air from day to day. So it's nice to have that kind of consistent thing happening. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit, so when did you get in Musae? Was that after you had moved into LA?
Yeah, it was right after I moved to LA. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at that point, what was like your mindset like? Because this is kind of like your beginning point being in the music industry there. So what was your like headspace like?
I was very, again, just like I was in Nor'easters when I first got into the group, intimidated. Because I was this transplant from Boston. I knew nobody. I moved into the SoCal Vocal House for 4 months because the job was starting so quickly and I had nowhere else to go. I didn't know how to rent an apartment in LA. It's so different from Boston. Everything was just up in the air. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have a car, which works in Boston, but apparently doesn't work in LA. So I had to buy a car. I was living in the Vocal House, surrounded by a cappella still, and wanting to remain involved in the a cappella community, but I knew that I still wanted to put out my own music. Mm-hmm. I had no idea how. Looking back now, I was so green when I first moved to LA. I was so not ready to put music out, and so I'm so glad that I waited until this past year. It just, sometimes I think, I wish I had started sooner, but I wasn't ready. So, everything happens as it's supposed to happen. But my headspace definitely at that point was just going to work, figuring out what living in LA was like. And when I had the opportunity to join Musae, I was so relieved because it was kind of like a validation for me. I don't think moving to LA had anything to do with me getting into Musae, but because it happened at the timeline it did, it felt like, okay, this was the right thing for me to do because now I moved to LA, now I got this new opportunity. Now let's see how we can continue to cultivate opportunities for me and keep moving forward and keep doing the right things. Yeah. So I was definitely very green and very excited. And it still excites me every time I get to go see those girls. But
yeah. And so you talked about, you've gone through a lot in your time in LA. You did the film job and you were trying to figure it out a little bit, but this year has kind of been the year of Sam Creighton original music in an awesome way. in February you released your first single as a solo artist, and at least from the outside looking in, I feel like in LA to like get in the pop world, like you kind of have to have a team together on some level of like people that you're going to work with and collaborate and like make a thing, and that feels like on some level an intimidating thing to put together. But like, how did you kind of find the people that you felt comfortable with enough to make that first song?
Definitely. So like I said, I had no idea what to do and how to meet these people. But I was best friends with my now boyfriend, who's an incredible songwriter. And we had been writing, just for the hell of it, just so I could learn how to write songs. And I would perform those songs live at small venues, but I had no intention of recording and releasing them because I had no idea how. And at this point, I had no self-confidence. But another a cappella person, I'm just going to keep mentioning a cappella people because honestly, the world revolves around a cappella. Mario Jose released his first project as a solo artist, and I went to his EP release party, and at that party, I have really bad social anxiety, but I tried to socialize. I probably came off as like some creepy weirdo, but whatever, that's in the past. And the producer of the song Talk, which was my second single, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I'm Johnny Shore. I know of you through a lot of people at USC," because he went to USC and he's an incredible music producer. And he said, "I would love to work with you." And I was like, "You want to work with me? Wait, what? Why? I've done nothing. That doesn't even make any sense." But he honestly was the catalyst to starting that Kickstarter and putting out these songs, because him having faith and believing in me made me almost like tricked me into believing in myself. And at that point I was like, you know what? All right, I'm going to really take writing seriously. I'm going to put out this music, and I'm going to raise money, which is a huge thing that you need in LA.
Yep.
And I'm going to put out the songs. And so Johnny, I met at Mario's EP release party. Songwriter-wise, I met Will through, back to acapella, when Sing It On aired, this guy named John Panicella watched the show, reached out to me on Twitter and said, "I saw you sing Jaywalk. I'm obsessed with your voice. I would love to work with you. If you're ever in LA, I'm a publicist," kind of thing. So I literally went on Twitter and direct messaged him back and said, "I actually just moved to LA. I would love to meet up." At this point, it's like me trying to talk myself up. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I just got back from a press tour with the Nor'easters from Sing It On. So like, let me just reach out to you when my schedule dies down." And like him being all like, "I'm a publicist and I work with this artist named blah, blah, blah." And then when we met up, it just like all the walls broke down and we became instant best friends. There was none of that bullshit. It was like, we were just bearing our souls to each other.
Yeah.
And so him and his artist he manages, also my other best friend, who's an incredible musician as well. His name's Dylan Bernard. The two of them introduced me to Will, the songwriter, who's now my boyfriend. So now at this point, I have a songwriter and a producer, which is incredible. And that's really all you need. And then after that, when the song was, getting ready to be released, I reached out to John, who is the person who, I was just mentioning, and he said he wanted to help me do the publicity stuff for it. So at that point, I have a songwriter, I have a producer, I have a publicist. And then I'm like, okay, I have all this stuff, but like, how do I make it look nice? What do I do? So I get a photographer, Dante Velasquez, and then I'm like, who can make this picture into something beautiful? So I get a graphic designer who's sitting right next to you, incredible Kayla.
It's Kayla.
And so everything's coming together, and you're right, like you need a team no matter what. I mean, you can do it all by yourself if you want to, but it feels so much better when it's like teamwork. That's it, and that kind of goes back to being in Nor'easters and being in a group and being a part of something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And so, when the whole team comes together and you put it out into the world, it's like magic happens.
So in terms of like the actual song itself, I know you mentioned Will was the songwriter at that point, or the person you were working with to help you songwrite, but what did that process look like, especially for you in the beginning stages when you were just kind of like doing it for the first time?
So songwriting at first, I used to write songs when I was really young, but you can't even call them songs. They're like ridiculous, like poems about not doing drugs. Like I don't even think I ever put melodies to them. Let's be real. But then when Will and I started working together, we would just talk about experiences I was having in life. And the magic about Will is that he can pick something out of a story I told him and be like, that would be an amazing title for a song, or that would be an amazing thing to revolve a song around. So I wrote a few songs. One was called Bragging Rights, about my best friend in college who I kind of fell in love with him, and then once I moved to LA, he all of a sudden was hopped on my dick, and I'm like, oh really? Now you wanna, like, I put you on a pedestal for so long when we were in college, but now all of a sudden I'm in LA doing like fun things, and now you want to fall in love with me, whatever. So just telling him that story and just things that related to my real life and writing songs about that. But the first song that I wanted to release, I wanted to be a fun song because I feel like I wanted to grab people's attention, I guess. And that song was kind of inspired by the song Sexual by Dio. You know it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to write a really fun song pretty much about nothing, which is hilarious because I'm such an emotional person. And I don't know. But it kind of turned into this whole song about being desired and how I kind of feel like, my own insecurities and how I chase the wrong things, and I don't know. I don't really know what it's about. I'm pulling stuff out of my ass right now, but it's a fun song, and we wrote it. I basically said to Will and Johnny, I want to write a song that sounds like Sexual, and so we did that. But when we really got into the whole songwriting thing, and I really started getting into it, the things that feel the best to me again are the things that are emotional and songs that I feel like I got something off my chest, or songs that I feel like I needed to bare my soul about. So Adore is an interesting case because obviously I want to write about things that I care about and things that I'm feeling and things that are empowering and things that make me feel something. But it just so happens that the first song I released is really about nothing.
Well, sometimes you
just need a bot.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's necessary.
And I feel like it makes sense because, especially as a solo artist, when there's no other group behind you and there's no band behind you, it's like it's just you on display. So I imagine putting yourself. I feel like so many artists who go out to LA take a while to like put out something that actually really is from their full heart. It's hard to like put that on display.
Yeah, and it's also like, how do I like break through the noise, and how do I make people listen to me? At that point, it's like write the catchiest thing, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And so in these, as you've kind of alluded to, the subsequent songs, Talk, and then most recently After Midnight, which is incredible.
Thank you.
As it come out, it feels like we're getting closer to that truer version of yourself. And so like what have kind of been revelations in the process that have kind of helped you kind of refine that and get closer to that?
So with Adore, like I said, I was so caught up on putting out something that people would love and that people could dance to and people could sing back and say that it's catchy, which is not the reason why I've loved music my whole life. So I don't know how I got so caught up in that so quickly and so all-encompassing. But I remember writing Talk with Will, again, which is kind of funny because now we've been dating for over a year now, but I wrote it with him before we were dating about a breakup that I was going through at the time. And the guy kind of just ghosted me. And I just remember feeling so defeated. And I wanted this song to just feel like closure and catharsis. And so when it comes down to it, you just have to write something that's, I don't know, I think catharsis is the main thing. Because when I wrote Talk, I wrote that about overcoming something and becoming strong and wanting something that I never got from this person, but the song and putting the song out helped me through that. And then with After Midnight, it was the catharsis of me realizing that I'm worthy of love and that women are fucking badass. And I'm okay with that swear because it's true. And for so long, I've succumbed to the objectification of being a woman because, Kayla, we're in college and we're surrounded by all these guys at parties and we're like wanting to hook up with somebody or wanting to, dress in this really cute outfit so guys like us. And like, I don't know how for so long I let myself feel like that was going to make me feel worthy of something. So After Midnight was the catharsis of me realizing I don't need anyone to feel like I'm strong, independent, badass, confident, love myself woman. But yeah, going back to just general songwriting, it's just about writing how you feel. And I'm definitely better at lyrics, but Will is like he's so incredible with melodies. They just like, he like throws them up. He vomits melodies and they're just like the craziest things ever. And so he helps me make them, I guess, palatable or like, or catchy or consumable, I guess. And my lyrics are the things that are like the emotion behind it, I guess.
So obviously you're working with other people as well besides Will doing the songwriting. So where does like the production kind of fit into all of this? Is this just completely after something has been written or is it part of the process?
And to add on to that, like with After Midnight, the chorus kind of features that little like sampled thing. Like, are you thinking that that's the thing that's going to happen or does that come after?
So it varies. If I'm in a room with a producer and a songwriter, obviously he'll be, sorry. I'll just start that over. It varies. If I'm in a room with a producer and a songwriter, the producer obviously will be creating the track as the writers write something. We'll like put down chords first, and then maybe some drum beat or some pad. But we'll write as the producer is kind of building the track as well. But most of the time, like After Midnight, for instance, was just on piano. We just wrote that on piano, and I had no idea that chorus drop was ever even going to become a thing. I didn't even know that was possible.
This is Evan from the future just popping in to say that what you just heard was an early demo of what that drop sounded like. And if you want to hear the real thing in context, stick around for the end of the episode.
We didn't even have like, that was technically supposed to be the chorus and then it was going to fall back into the verse. But now, because of the production, that part kind of seems like the pre-chorus and then the drop feels like the chorus kind of. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy because you think your creation is done and then you hand it off to somebody that you trust and then it becomes this whole different thing. I personally enjoy writing with writing acoustically because it feels more emotional to me. But obviously there's something really amazing about writing with a producer as well because you, at the end of a session, you have a more finished product. Whereas when I write on the piano or guitar, it's just a voice memo.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes things difficult because then when you're looking for collaborators, and all these people are sending me all their SoundCloud links with all these built-out demos, and I'm like, oh, here's my SoundCloud link full of voice memos. But it depends. It just so happens that I tend to work with the same few people, and we tend to work on the piano or guitar. But yeah, it definitely varies. Like I know that I have a few people who have where I have a partner who's a songwriter. I have a few friends who have partners who are producers. So it's very different. Like they might sit in a room with a producer and come up with a full-fledged song in 2 hours with full production. They're like, I'm going to release this tomorrow. And other times you write to a piano and you let the song sit for 3 months and then you come back to it and you're like, oh, I want to find a producer to make something out of this.
So we have a few listener questions that kind of fit in well here. The first one being from at Rachel Ellis 18, who asked what your favorite song is that you've released so far.
My favorite song that I've released is definitely After Midnight. I totally agree with you, Evan, when you said that the true me is kind of coming to the surface, and this definitely feels like I'm in the right direction of finding out who I am as an artist. After Midnight, again, is just, it came from a place of anger, which is interesting because I'm not generally an angry person, but I feel like the best songs I've written so far are songs that I've written when I'm angry. I guess that's just maybe a very strong emotion, but it kind of just, I guess the song is empowering, and I still feel to this day connected to that song, whereas Talk, I'm just like so over that situation, so I still like the song, but I'm not really attached to it anymore. And Adore, I was not attached to it the second it came out. But After Midnight, I feel like is so universal, and I can always come back to that song and feel empowered and feel strong and feel confident as a woman. So definitely that one. And hopefully the song after this, I'll feel the same way about. It's kind of in the same vein of like feminism and female empowerment. It's called Smile, and it's about being catcalled and how we shouldn't put up with it anymore. But it's in a very it's a non-preachy way. It's a very boppy, fun way. It's not like Roll Your Eyes, another feminist anthem way. Hopefully. Hopefully. But long story short, Rachel, After Midnight is definitely the favorite so far.
I was also going to say, I feel like obviously the music video for After Midnight was a big part of the song in the release too. And I think just from an outsider perspective, it feels like there's just a very distinct narrative when you're listening to that song, especially with the video to visually see what's happening. So can you just kind of talk about that in particular, where the concept came from and creating the video?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I had all these crazy ideas for the music video, obviously a very small budget. So, I had all my pipe dreams, and then I kind of had to narrow it down into something that was attainable for, what I can give to viewers and myself at the moment in terms of budget. And I just kind of had this idea of a rotary roundabout, what's it called? A conveyor belt. And I kind of just wanted myself on a conveyor belt going through the same 3 scenes over and over again. Kind of just hooking up with the guy, being sad, hating myself, hooking up with the guy again, being sad, hating myself. Kind of, because, I don't know. I feel like a lot of women go through the same thing when they think that they're going to be validated by going to sleep with some guy. They think that it's going to feel like they're loved or feel like they're wanted. But and then I had the idea of becoming a doll, because in some scenarios with certain guys, you kind of feel like a blow-up doll, or they don't care anything about you. They just want you for a specific reason. So obviously those two things were kind of out of budget. So I kind of came down to the idea of, why don't I dress up kind of like a Barbie doll in the first scene, and then just make it a real life situation, something that I've done and something that I've been through. So, and there were 2 different sets. The first one was that crazy cool house that was kind of vintagey, and the second set obviously was the bedroom. And I just figured if we went back and forth between those 2 scenes of me kind of going through this turmoil of whether or not to go to this guy's house, and then going to the guy's house and giving it to him, and then the second time around being really I don't know, tortured by the idea of, not wanting to give myself to him, but still giving in. And then the third time around, which would kind of, in some sense of the word, portray in my mind, the conveyor belt kind of thing. But by the third time, I'm just fuck this, fuck everyone. I don't need no man. I'm independent. I'm confident. But the thing I love so much about it is that it came from an experience, and I kind of just had that in my brain and brought it to life.
Yeah.
So seeing that completed must have been one of these, but we have one more listener question that I wanted to get in before we wrap things, which is and you nor memesters, which I believe is Singing on Fan, which I believe is our friend Ray, asked what the most surreal moment you've experienced since releasing your singles has been.
Ooh, I think definitely having the video premiere on Refinery 29 was really crazy.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have been following that platform for years, and I've always had so much respect for it and looked up to it as, they just do a really good job at featuring things that are featuring content that is important and of the time, and especially recently in the vein of feminism, which is obviously what the song is all about. And when I heard that they accepted my song for a premiere, I freaked out, because that when you look up to something for so long and you respect something so much and then you get to become a part of it, there's no other word for it than surreal. That was definitely one of them. And then every single time somebody direct messages me on Instagram and says, I heard your song in a restaurant, I heard your song in a store, I heard your song here or there, that is just like, whoa. Because that is surreal in the way that I don't think it's real yet, because I wasn't there hearing it. I just hear stories about it. So it's kind of like a weird moment. I probably won't understand or believe it until it happens to me. But yeah, definitely those two are I pinch myself moments for sure.
Yeah. So there's probably so much more that we could talk about. Just like now, I'm like already realizing there's like so many layers to like you and your experience, which is really, really cool. But sadly, we're nearing the end.
No worries.
So we have two questions that we like to ask our guests, and the first one is, what sort of trends do you see, or just things in general, do you see happening in the music industry that you're excited by?
Well, being in LA, there's definitely so much music coming out all the time, and definite trends that I see that probably will be popular, or maybe will be popular. I feel like the minimalistic production is going to continue to be popular. Might not be a while until that, the big band, like, live music sound comes back, but I love that for the reason that producers are forced and musicians are forced to innovate, because no one song sounds alike now, which is incredible. I mean, well, melodically, there are a lot of songs that sound alike, especially when you enter the Spotify world with...
Yeah.
No offense, like, I still love and listen to all these artists, but I feel like a lot of, like, the Charlotte Lawrence, Maggie Lindemann, Madison Beer, they could all kind of sound, like, sing the same kind of music, but when it comes to, like, pop production, I feel like the really innovative, minimalistic sounds will continue to be a trend. I also feel as though sad music is going to be a trend. I don't know if you guys know Sasha Sloan. She's incredible. She writes for Camila Cabello. She wrote Never Be the Same. But she has her own artist project. You guys should listen to it. She just released an EP. But a lot of music now, when you compare it to, like, I don't know, the 80s or even or even early 2000s, Teenage Dream, Katy Perry, everything is just super bubblegum pop. And recently, the music has become more real and more, I guess there are fewer, it's not like, there aren't analogies in music anymore. There's no Teenage Dream or, Toxic anymore, It's, I don't even really know how to explain it. It's just, people are talking more about their life experiences in music rather than coming up with some crazy analogy or metaphor in music. I don't know if that's just what I listen to, but I definitely think that people are writing from experience more than in the past. I don't know if that even made sense or sounded like...
No, it does. It does, and I totally agree. I think that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Where it's more of conversational.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
relatable. Yeah.
Julia Michaels did that with the conversational stuff. Yeah, she was the catalyst for that kind of music, definitely.
Yeah.
And then the last question is, what is next for you that you would like to talk about and or plug?
What is next for me? Well, I'm definitely going to continue writing and releasing music, and hopefully Musae will have some gigs within the next few months. And I'm definitely going to be performing at the top of next year, releasing another single at the top of next year, getting back into the whole performing thing because it's been a while. And I'll just be sitting here making Chinese visas for people, but doing the music on the side until I no longer have to, supplement my income. Hopefully get some sort of publishing deal. Amanda Newman who is my manager now, which is amazing. Yeah. She comes out to LA like literally once a week. And so she's introduced me to some great collaborators thus far. And we're just going to keep working and being badass team of women and take over the world.
Awesome. Well, in an LA way, what you're speaking into existence, it's gonna manifest.
Oh
it's
yes.
all gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
All gonna happen.
But genuinely, I think we all feel that it's all gonna happen for you at some point. It's just a matter of time. But thank you so much for talking to us
Thank you for
this
coming
week.
on.
Like Kayla said, I think there could be another episode down the line if you want to do one.
We'll do a recap in a year.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week for a new episode of
Thank you.
Thank you guys. That was so fun.
You only call me after midnight when you can't help yourself. I'm only good for a good time till you find someone else. I don't care if you're lonely. You should know that I won't be coming over after midnight. After midnight, you only call me after midnight. I was a fool thinking that you could ever change.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You're now listening to Sam's newest single, After Midnight. From where I was sitting, we had a lot of fun recording this one, and Sam is just so great. She has so much insight and such a great arc in terms of all the things that she's been doing and how she got to where she is now.
Yeah, we've talked to a lot of great guests, but like with Sam in particular, I feel like she was very like ready to go really in depth about a lot of stuff in a way that like we don't always necessarily get, especially with people that, you know, we've met, and Kayla worked on her album art and everything, but you know,
Yeah.
we haven't talked that many times, but she was really able to have a conversation with us, which I really love.
Right, and I think that's kind of a testament to who she is as a person. Like, it seems like she's like knows herself very well, and like obviously during the episode she's talking about how she kind of grew into herself and developed confidence over time. But in terms of the things that she believes in, she believes very strongly about them. So I think that comes across in her music.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where the growth continues because every single little bit of music that she's producing is just getting better and better. So cheers to you, Sam, and we hope we hear a lot more really awesome stuff coming from you.
Yeah, I'm really stoked on that. I'm also really stoked on our episode for next week. Who's it going to feature?
It's going to feature Brett Castro.
Oh, yeah, it is. Brett Castro, who is current a member of the NYU Enharmonics, and he also puts out a lot of really awesome music. So listen to Sam's music, listen to Brett's music, preparation for next week. If you have a second to leave a review on iTunes, I know you're probably sick of hearing me say this, but it really helps us. And if you just want to follow us on socials, Facebook, Instagram, we've been doing some fun stuff on there. It's not quite after midnight, but it is getting close to midnight right now as we record this. So I'm going to go sleep on my bed, which is one way.
1, 2, 3. That's a midnight.